It's that time of year, right? We hear this every year. You get a cold and you go ask your doctor, what's up or why, and they say, oh, it's that time of year. Everyone's getting sick. And then they recommend an antibiotic for a viral thing, usually, which isn't going to help you, and you leave frustrated. So today I want to arm you with natural strategies for quote unquote cold season. And we'll cover things that are useful for bacteria and or viruses so that you've got things at home in place so that if you pick up one of these colds, then you can implement it. Or if you want to be proactive and prevent the cold or reduce the time that you have the cold, you can have these in your functional medicine first aid kit. That's what I call what our parents would call the medicine cabinet. All right, so let's dive in. Cold season. Before we give any information here, I never know who's on the call. There will be people that I know, but also people that I don't know. There'll be people live, and then, after today in perpetuity, people who weren't live. And so this disclaimer is to let you know that unless you are my patient and we've got a relationship, that this is for information only. This is not a specific recommendation for you because I don't know you or your case. So before implementing any of this, please cover it with your physician first to make sure that this is okay for you. So, what do you do when you feel like this? And again, you go to your GP often, or people who aren't in the functional medicine world or the alternative health world, they'll go to their GP, they'll maybe get an antibiotic, or they'll watchfully wait and be better. They say, there's a saying that what do you do for the flu? If you take meds, you'll be better in 7 days. If you don't, you'll be better in a week. So it's kind of like a snarky answer to you're not going to die from this. These are common colds or common infections. So, you don't have to go seek out the latest, um, you know, uh, booster or unproven thing just to feel like you're doing your best, because that's not doing your best. You're taking a sick self and exposing it to a man-made, unproven Frankenstein potion and hoping that you get better. So let's give you some things that can help. And let's start with strep throat. So strep throat is an infection with streptococcus bacteria. And because it's bacterial, you want to use antibacterial strategies to kill it. Medicine's favorite thing to give is an antibiotic. And so, things like ceftonir or amoxicillin or augmentin, there's a ton of them, and they usually will give you a 10-day course and you go from there. But there is science behind natural strategies that are herbal or mushroom based or nutrient based that also show efficacy for strep. And so here are two options for you. The first one here is a video I made on how to kill strep and heal from strep using cordyceps. And cordyceps is a medicinal mushroom that science has shown to have bactericidal properties against strep. So antibacterial, or a natural mushroom antibiotic for strep infection. So cordyceps is one thing you can use, and another thing you can use is grapefruit seed extract. And I keep both of these in my cupboard, and I like the liquids because streptococcus, strep throat is an actual throat infection, oftentimes in the tonsils. And so you could take capsules of cordyceps here, or you could take capsules of grapefruit seed extract. Or do other strategies like different vitamins or whatever. And those things can be helpful, but those things have to be swallowed, broken down in the gut, hit the system, and then hopefully get to the strep eventually. What I like about tinctures in the form of the cordyceps here, or drops, which is the grapefruit seed extract here, is that we can apply these topically to the throat, to the tonsils, by dropping them in your mouth or mixing them in water and then gargling the water against the tonsils so that you're topically bathing the tonsils, bathing the throat, bathing the infected area with the natural antibacterial strategy. And so me personally, whenever I get a sore throat, I'll take this grapefruit seed extract and I'll add 10 to 20 drops and say 8 ounces of water. And every sip of that water is going to be bitter because there's some grapefruit seed extract in there. But I'm going to take a mouthful of that water for 8 ounces of it. And every mouthful, I'm going to gurgle or gargle, however you feel like saying it. I'm going to gargle aggressively so that I'm hitting that throat, hitting those tonsils with the grapefruit seed extract water and killing bacteria, at least on the surface with it. And it's been a very beneficial strategy for me. Actually, my mom bought me a bottle of this when I went to undergrad before I knew anything about health or any of this stuff. And I've used it ever since. Whenever I get a sore throat, I hit this immediately, and usually it doesn't become an issue. So for strep throat, natural strategies to investigate and discuss with your provider are cordyceps and grapefruit seed extract. What about flu or other common viruses? Yeah, there's lots of them. There's flu, there's RSV, there's COVID, whatever, alphabet soup variant we're on these days. There's things like HSV or herpes simplex 1. There's lots of viruses out there. There's Epstein-Barr virus, there's cytomegalovirus, there's all kinds of, there's rhinovirus, adenovirus, there's all kinds of viruses that we can be exposed to and are exposed to that we don't have to freak out and go run to a pharmaceutical company for. We can support our body's natural immunity, and we can use natural antiviral strategies to knock them out. And this is a video that I've made, it's probably been 2 years ago now, on the use of a nebulizer for a specific virus that we all are familiar with. And the nebulizer is my #1 tool for upper respiratory tract infections, whether that's sinuses, strep throat, and or lung infections. Because the upper respiratory tract includes all of that. It includes sinus, the ENT, the sinuses, the throats, down into the lungs. And again, like using the grapefruit seed extract or the cordyceps for strep throat to topically impact it and actually bathe it in our killing strategies, the nebulizer allows us to do that for viruses. So inhaling the aerosolized strategies that you use into the sinus mucosa, into the throat, into the lungs helps you, again, topically hit the tissue of concern and the viruses in that tissue with our antiviral strategies. So you can search this video on my YouTube channel. It's about 40 minutes long, and I give you the nebulizer recipe around minute 16, but I screenshotted it here for you. And you can buy a nebulizer on Amazon. They're 40, 50 bucks. And you want to at least use sterile saline at 0.9%, 3% food grade hydrogen peroxide, and colloidal silver. At least use those three. I personally also will open up a capsule of N-acetylcysteine and sprinkle like a quarter capsule in the nebulizer cup. N-acetylcysteine is mucolytic, so if you've got a lot of mucus and like thick cough and you're trying to break it up and get it out, NAC helps break up the mucus. It's mucolytic. It's also directly antiviral, so you get that double whammy positive for yourself. And NAC is also a precursor to glutathione production, and glutathione has antiviral properties, as we'll see here shortly. So NAC is a big one. Vitamin C, you can take a powdered form of vitamin C, add that to the cup. I like to take an astragalus tincture and put drops of astragalus in the cup because astragalus is directly supportive of natural killer cells and the antiviral immune response. So a nebulizer is key regardless of which virus you have. If it's an upper respiratory viral infection, nebulizers are great. I use this on my kids the second they start to show signs of it. One thing to watch for is if you're using food grade hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is, acidic, so it can burn a little bit. And sometimes when you aerosolize it, it can burn your eyes because the gas is coming out of the mask there when you're exhaling and floats up into your eyes. So what I have my kids do is just wear their swim goggles, and that way, the gas isn't hitting their eyes and burning their eyes, and they're fine. And so if you're using it and it's extra burning to your throat, say, then you just need to dilute. You use too much hydrogen peroxide or not enough saline and silver. So you just dilute it by adding more saline and or more silver. So great strategy, highly recommend it. Again, great to have in your functional medicine first aid kit handy when and if you need it. Two other great strategies are povidone iodine and glutathione. And the iodine I also put in my nebulizer every single time I do it. So I'll put 2 or 3 drops of 2% Lugol solution, which is povidone iodine, and iodine is directly antimicrobial. If you've ever used betadine on a wound, betadine is iodine, so they dress wounds with iodine and silver in hospital settings. And in our nebulizer, we've got iodine and silver to address our internal wound, which is an infection in this case. So antimicrobial properties for iodine. Iodine is good for virus or bacteria. So this would have utility in strep or other bacterial infections as well. Glutathione. Glutathione is your body's master antioxidant, has antiviral properties, promotes the antiviral immune response, helps it has antioxidant properties. It supports liver detoxification. It has many benefits on many levels, but also specific to our viral discussion here. So love to have that around as well. And the Research Nutritionals brand here is the best product I've found on the market for both taste and therapeutic dose. All infections, whether we're talking about virus, bacteria, whatever, vitamin A and vitamin D are going to be key for you. Both are anti-inflammatory, both are immune balancing, both are antiviral. The World Health Organization has said vitamin A should be used in third world countries for mumps and measles and rubella, up to 100,000 IU a day for 7 days in the acute phase. So regardless of what mainstream media says about vitamin A and natural things not having utility against viruses, even the World Health Organization for years has said use vitamin A because it is very strong very effective antiviral. It also supports healthy vision, healthy skin, healthy thyroid, and healthy mucosal layers. And mucosal layers are where we get infected commonly because the mucus lines hollow spaces. So that's your gut, lungs, sinus, bladder, skin, gums. So there's going to be utility for vitamin A in all infections, likely. Same for vitamin D, antiviral, anti-inflammatory. Vitamin D promotes the production of what are called AMPs, or antimicrobial peptides, like cathelicidin in the gut barrier and other mucosal barriers. So yes, vitamin D would be antiviral or antibacterial by driving the immune response against it, but also these antimicrobial peptides are like natural antibiotics that we make through vitamin D promoting it. So vitamin D is going to be useful in infection states as well. And both of these I've added to the nebulizer in the past. Remember that supplementation is just part of the story. And if you don't have the lifestyle dialed in, the supplements aren't going to be as effective as they would be if the lifestyle is dialed in. And many times, if we're honest and we take an honest self-inventory when we're sick or infected, there was probably a lead up to the infection that included a falling off the wagon, so to speak, in terms of living a healthy lifestyle. And it could have been one or more of the following. Perhaps we stayed up too late, or we're sleep deprived for some reason. Sleep deprivation depresses antiviral defenses and promotes us getting sick, promotes inflammation, promotes insulin resistance, all kinds of issues. And it doesn't take like many days of sleep deprivation. The research shows one night of sleep deprivation increases inflammation significantly, and that can suppress the immune system quickly. Nutrition. If you fall off the nutrition wagon and you go have a big gluten bomb or dairy bomb, or artificial sweeteners or colors, or whatever it is, why is cold season, quote unquote, always in December, January? Well, because people justify eating sugar for 2 months from Thanksgiving through New Year's because it's holiday season. So is it cold season, or is it holiday? Is it sugar season? Right? So sticking with the nutrition, healthy nutrition will be naturally anti-inflammatory, antiviral, immune supportive. Hydration. Hydration is key for health. You're 60 to 70% water. A 2% dehydration promotes a 10% loss in performance. So if you're dehydrated just a little bit, your overall function drops quickly. And again, rather than drinking coffee for every time we put a liquid in our mouth, which actually dehydrates you further, we need to be drinking water. And we need to be eating water as well. What do I mean by that? Eating your fruits and veggies. The many of those are great Trojan horses for water. For example, cucumber, 97% water. So if you like cucumber, you're really eating water, because only 3% of it is not water. Tomatoes, 95% water. There's a whole list of fruits and veggies that are 90% water or higher. And so you can drink your water, but you can also eat and get your water as well. And then appropriate movement. We want exercise, but different people are in different states where what looks like exercise to one person would actually be damaging to another. That's why I put appropriate movement here. Appropriate is what's appropriate to you individually at this time. And so, over a video, I don't know what that is for you unless we've worked together recently. And so you need to figure out what that answer is for you. Now, in general, exercise is good, working out is good. And so most people would say, yeah, exercise so you don't get sick. But you can also exercise yourself sick, meaning if you are sleep deprived, and you haven't slept well for multiple days, and you keep exercising because exercise is good for me, that exercise could dig your hole deeper in terms of heading towards poor health, because you're already inflamed and tired and immune suppressed from the sleep deprivation, and now you go do a high intensity interval training workout class when you haven't recovered because you haven't had good sleep in 3 or 4 days, and you dig yourself deeper. You're driving more cortisol, more adrenals. And so maybe in that moment, the appropriate movement would be not to exercise beyond taking a nice slow walk in the woods or walking your dog around the block. So figuring out what the appropriate movement is for you at this time is going to be important. And these lifestyle strategies are going to go further in helping you prevent being infected and having a rough cold season than if you live poorly but take your vitamin D. Right? So go out there, dial in your lifestyle, get these things nailed, and then make sure your functional medicine first aid kit is stocked with your vitamins and your antimicrobials and your nebulizer, and give yourself the best shot at, if you do become infected, recovering as quickly as possible. Let's open it up for questions.
Had a chronic staph infection in his nose for a year and a half and they keep throwing antibiotics at it, which does do well, but towards the end of the antibiotics, it comes right back. And
Yeah.
so when you said a nebulizer and doing the vitamin A and D in that, do you think that is there something else that is better with like a staph bacteria,
No,
bacterial infection?
it would be useful to add those to the nebulizer for sure. One thing to consider though, if you if they're doing antibiotics and the antibiotics work, but it comes back once the antibiotics stop, does it happen to be the same antibiotic every time, or are they changing it up?
It's they changed it up, but this last antibiotic does seem to work, but he's also on an immune suppressant drug right now.
Yeah,
So he's fighting with that too.
yeah.
So
So that's another layer. Like if you're on an immune suppressing drug, you're not going to fight an infection as well as you could, and you're opened up for infection. So that's another layer. But just if we keep the focus for right now on the antibiotic, where I was going was if you take an antibiotic and it works, the antibiotic's gone and it comes back. You take the antibiotic again and it works. Antibiotic runs out, comes back. That suggests a biofilm based infection.
no.
Biofilms are involved in up to 80% of infections based on the research, and I've made videos on this before, but biofilms are like little igloos that the immune system uses to hide from, or excuse me, not the immune system uses. Biofilms are igloos that the infections use, bacteria use, and yeast use them as well to hide from our immune system and from um, our medicines. So let's say right here, this is his sinus wall. Okay, so this is his actual sinus tissue. Okay, and on that tissue, the bacteria are going to build their igloo or build their biofilm. And the reason they build this is because down at the lowest level here in this area are called persister cells. And they're sitting here and they're literally eating on his tissue right here. So they create inflammation here, not enough to kill him, because if he dies, they die. So it's like you can think of it as a parasitic relationship. They're feeding on him, but they're keeping him alive, because if he dies, then their whole strategy falls apart. So these guys are protected by this igloo here. When antibiotics were invented or discovered, all we knew about were what are called planktonic bacteria or free swimmers. Antibiotics are great at killing free swimming bacteria or bacteria they can see. Okay. Bacteria that are hidden down under the igloo, the antibiotics will go and bounce off. Okay. And bacteria have also developed or evolved mechanisms where if we have another free swimmer over here, the antibiotic enters the bacteria, takes up the antibiotic, but they have these things on them. They've evolved these things called multi-drug resistant efflux pumps, MDRs, and they take in the antibiotic, and before it can kill them, their body recognizes it and shoots it out so that they can stay alive. So we need different strategies to get to these guys, because what the antibiotic does is it'll come and it'll knock a couple shingles off the roof, right? And so what that's equivalent to is you take your 10-day course of antibiotics, it knocks enough shingles off so that your son is asymptomatic now, and you're like, oh yeah, it worked, he's better, and then the course is over. Well, then these persister cells wake up and they're swimming in the guts of all their buddies, and that's very nutritious, and so they rebuild the igloo. And then 2 weeks later, he's symptomatic again. So what was happening was the antibiotic killed enough of the outer layer of the biofilm to make them asymptomatic, but the antibiotic doesn't get down to the persister cells because of the biofilm. So we need antibiotics plus biofilm disruptors and plus MDR inhibitors, for those multi-drug resistant efflux pump inhibitors, so that we're hitting them from all angles. We can kill the free swimmers. We can put put a plug on that there so they can't eject the antibiotic when it goes inside them. And the biofilm disruptor comes and just chops this building up. So now we have access to these persister cells, can kill them for good. And hopefully, 2 weeks later, it doesn't show up again.
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.